Hello everyone, thank you for joining me today. I'm Kimberly and this is the Modest Abode, and today we're going to be making a bowl cozy. You put it in the microwave, and when you take it out, you don't burn your hands on the hot bowl. You could also put ice cream in here, and then your hands wouldn't get cold while you're eating your ice cream. It is a quick, easy sew. The supplies you need for this project: 2 different prints of cotton fabric. You could have it be all one print, that's not a big deal, but it is a big deal that it's cotton. You want everything for this project to be 100% cotton if you're going to put it in the microwave. People have made it out of something else and it has caught on fire, so we don't want that. And then you'll want 100% cotton batting. I use something called Pellon Wrap and Zap, and it's specifically for things that you're gonna put in the microwave. So they sell it at all of your local fabric supply stores. You're also gonna need a pair of scissors. You will need a water-soluble pen to mark the darts. So the darts are the little parts here that make it not flat. So now it has dimension. And then you'll need a turning tool to turn it right side out. You need a ruler. You are going to need basic sewing supplies like pins and snips, and also make sure that when you use thread for this, that it is 100% cotton as well. So now that we have all of our supplies, let's go ahead and cut our fabric. To cut your fabric, you're gonna start with either a 1/2 yard or a fat quarter of fabric. This particular bowl cozy happens to be 9 by 9. First, I'm gonna mark where my 9 point is. I measured 9 here. I'm going to draw a line because I'm using scissors, not a rotary cutter, which you could easily use a rotary cutter for this. And then I'm going to cut right along that line, and I cut 2 layers at once. I don't like to cut more than that because it throws off the dimensions. There's the batting. Okay, now I'll cut my cotton. I only need 1 layer of each. I'm going to turn it so I can cut it on the line. Turn it again and cut it the other way. Now I'll cut the other print. So I'm going to use the back side. That's probably the best side to mark on, even though it is a water-soluble pen. And I'm actually not going to use the ruler. I'm going to use the piece of fabric that I just cut to measure this. It's a little easier. And then just cut along your line. If you make a whole bunch of these, you can make a pattern, and it makes it really quick. I'm going to cut this selvage edge off as well because we don't need it. Take your 2 pieces of batting and put it on the back side, the wrong side, of each piece of fabric. And then the next part, we'll be sewing those together. So now that we have our 2 pieces of fabric with the batting on the back side, we are going to mark them with an X. We're going to draw a line from corner to corner and then the other corner to corner on both pieces. And then I like to pin the pieces together so they don't move around when we're stitching. And we're going to pin them away from where our stitching lines are, of course. This is going to help give our bowl cozy some structure. It's basically like quilting, but very simply. Okay, and then next we will take the pieces to the machine and stitch the X. So now that we have our markings, we're just going to stitch a straight line along the X. So we're going to back stitch at the beginning and at the end. We're going to repeat that process across each line, and then we'll trim our threads. Do that for both pieces. And then we'll do our last one. Now let's go mark some darts. Now that we have our batting sewn to our fabric with our X, we're going to fold it in half, right sides together. We're going to mark our darts so that we can bring shape to the bowl cozy. So to mark our darts, you want to go 1 inch up and 2 inches over. And you just mark a dot at each location, and once you have the dot, you're going to draw a line. In order to do that, to make it easier on myself, I cut out a little cardboard pattern piece, and it is 1 inch up and 2 inches down, and I can just easily draw my line using the pattern piece. You don't have to be perfect. And then you turn it and fold it in half the other way. And you'll notice you only have one part, but you're going to sew it folded. So now we want to mark our other side. And remember, the 2 inches is at the fold. So that'll help you remember which way to have the pattern piece. Okay, we're going to do that on both pieces. Now, just as before, I like to pin them together, just one little pin, just so the fabric doesn't move on me when I take it to the machine to stitch. And that will be the next step. So you're going to want to take this to your machine and stitch the darts closed. Now we have our dart marks, and we're just going to stitch a straight line from point to point, and we're going to backstitch at each end for each dart. You want to make sure the fabric inside is smooth so you don't have any puckers. You can start on either end. And you take your pin out and you fold it the opposite direction so that your dart marks are facing up. Smooth it out. And stitch again, same thing. Okay, and then you'll repeat for the other one. And now we're ready to cut it into shape and put them together. Now you can see your bowl cozy is starting to take shape. That's what the darts do. And so now we need to clean it up a little bit. So we're gonna cut the excess that's behind each dart. Just cut it about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch close. And while you're doing that, you'll cut all the threads that are hanging loose on either end of the dart. So we're gonna go around and do each one. You just want to get it nice and clean. And this is thread from the fabric unraveling. So we're going to close that up and that won't happen anymore. Now we're going to do the other piece, just the same. Okay, so now that they're all cleaned up, we're going to shape them. This step you can skip if you like the corners squared off. However, I prefer them curved, so we're going to cut a curve. So you can mark your curve freehand, or if you like, just grab whatever circular bowl, cup, anything, and just make a little curved line for you to follow that goes from edge to edge. I don't measure here, I just try to make a nice curve. And now these are two sides together, it's folded in half again, and I'm going to cut that curve. And now that I have that first curve, I'm going to open it up and fold it the other way and use it as my pattern basically to cut the rest of the curves. I think the curves just give it a nice soft look, but it's really your preference. So now that we have one done, I'm going to use it on the other one. The other one's folded in half. I'm going to place this one folded in half on top of it, matching the folded edges. And then I'm just going to hold all the layers and cut through the thickness, cut the curve. So just really easy, simple cutting. Okay, so now that we have our nice curves, we're going to have one piece with the right side of the fabric facing up, and we're going to take the other piece and we're going to push the inside in so that the right side is facing down, and then we're going to match all of our darts and all of our seams. At one point, you're going to leave an opening. So I like to choose a point from a dart to where the curve comes in, because you don't want to be leaving an opening on a curve. So it's about 2 inches is all you need. So I'm going to mark that with a different color pin so I know when I'm stitching where to start and stop and leave my opening. So, and then I'm just going to continue to match up. You can bunch it up slightly in the middle to make the seams match. Just make sure you get all the way around and it's pinned together. So now we're going to go stitch this all the way around, starting here, stitch all the way around, and stopping here. And we're going to back stitch here, and we're going to back stitch here. Okay, so we're back at the machine, and you may notice that I have the front of my machine taken off just to expose the free arm. That'll make it slightly easier for this to curve around. So just because of the dimensions, you won't have to be fighting it anywhere. So I've put the bowl cozy in the machine and I'm starting at the white pin where we marked, and I'm just going to go ahead and stitch, and I'm just going to take my time and stitch slowly around each curve and just making sure I catch both sides of the fabric. I'm going to backstitch at the beginning and at the end. If you like, it can help to do the curves by stopping your needle at the dart, just after the dart, and then turning the fabric slightly. And I also like to remove my pins as I stitch. That's where I'm stopping and turning slightly, removing my pin, and starting my next curve. And I can see my white pin here. I'm going to come to the end and stop and backstitch right here. Next, what we'll do is cut our threads, take these pins out, and then we'll turn this right side out. Alright, so I've taken out my guide pins. I'm going to trim my threads. We'd used about a 1/2 inch side seam, and so I'm going to clip in just up to the seam on either side of each dart. It's quite thick there, so I'm going to trim that down a little bit too. And then we'll do our last one. Okay, now we're going to find our opening. Remember, we left a 2-inch opening on a straighter side, and now comes the most challenging part of the whole thing, which isn't that challenging at all, but we're going to turn the piece right side out. So you just work with it. It's amazing how well the seams hold when you poke it through and pull it out. Just keep tugging on it and it'll eventually come on through. So now we're gonna work with it until we can just press your finger up against the inside seam, and you're going to make sure that you have all your curves and that you caught all your fabric all the way around. We can see there that I did not catch all the fabric, so I'll have to fix that. Then we'll come back and finish this section. Okay, so we noticed we had a little mistake here where I wasn't able to catch both sides of the fabric. That'll happen sometimes, and I'll just show you how to fix it. So I can tell that I'm about 2 inches away from my opening, and that's where I need to catch the fabric. So you just poke it back through the way you were pulling it out before, same way. Push it through, and I'm just going to peek inside and make sure that I got the right side. So this is where my error is. So I want to catch both sides of the fabric so you can't see the batting through there. So I am holding with my fingers where that is, and again I'm going to use my pins as a guide just to show me where it is, and I'm going to make it a little extra long. This is where it starts. My stitching will start probably here, and then I'll just stitch closer in so I'm sure to catch all the fabric on the other side. Okay, so we've now fixed our little error. Happy accidents, as Bob Ross likes to say. And I'm just trimming the threads, and we're back to the point of where we are going to turn it right side out. So you find your opening and you push the fabric through, and then you want to take your finger and smooth along the seam on the inside so that you're pushing out all the curves. Okay, and we have our opening that we need to turn over, and you have to play with it and get it smooth. You can use a pin to help you play with the fabric a little bit to get it to where you have a nice curve, and you're going to pin this all together. You're welcome to press it. I like to finger press, and we're going to pin this opening closed. Okay, once you have it where you like it, then you're going to take it to the machine and top stitch all the way around. Now you can see it's reversible, so if you're using a thread other than white or something like I'm using, then you would want to match your upper thread to the one side and your bobbin thread to the other side. But since I'm using white on both the bobbin and the upper thread, it doesn't matter. So we're just going to sew all the way around the edge and try to make this look as neat as possible so that we don't have any puckers or points at the end. So, and as you can see, that will be our final step, and then we'll have a bowl cozy. Okay, so we're back at the machine, and you can see I have lots of pins in here to hold my opening closed. And I've set the machine stitch length to 3 on my machine. That's a little bit longer of a stitch, and it's usually what is used for top stitching. You want to take this nice and slow and go around all the curves just like you did when you were stitching it together on the other side. So let's get started. You only need about 1/8 of an inch from the edge. You just want to make sure that you're catching both sides. I didn't take my pins out because I'm sewing very slowly, and I'm just being careful not to let the needle hit a pin. Now I can sew a little bit faster since I'm past the area where all the pins are. You hear the noise my machine is making. It's just because it's very thick. It's a lot of batting in there, and the thickness is causing a little echo in my machine. You want to make sure you get your end threads out of the way, your beginning threads I should say, so that when you get to the end, you're not catching them in your stitching. Okay, and when you get to where you started, you're just going to back stitch. Pull it out. And then we'll take our pins out, clip all of our threads, and we'll have a finished bowl cozy. For the final step, I just clipped our threads and took our pins out, and now we have a finished bowl cozy. So you can see it holds a bowl quite nicely, and you can also just push it the other way and it is totally reversible. So now the blue is on the outside. So one thing I wanted to mention was that I didn't use my turning tool. What I did was I used my finger instead to push out the seams when we were turning it right side out. You can use your finger, you can use a turning tool, any turning tool you have, like a chopstick or a knitting needle, anything you have on hand. You can make any shape you like from the corners. So we made curved, you can make pointy, and you can play around with it. It's totally customizable. These make excellent gifts and they're really fun to make. So if you have any questions, please leave a comment below, and if you have any suggestions, those are welcome as well. And I really appreciate you joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I'm Kimberly with The Modest Abode, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care.